getting down to brass tacks. We've all heard the expression, and we know what it means, but have you ever wondered where that expression originated? Well, if you don't know, turns out you're in good company. The fact is, no one really knows where that particular expression originated. We know that getting down to brass tacks means getting down to the focus of something, getting down to the central issue, the main point, the main idea. But no one knows exactly where that particular expression began. There are a few guesses. Brass tacks were often used to hold the upholstery of furniture. Brass tacks were also used in selling cloth. If you went into a store, there would often be a table with two brass tacks exactly 1 yard apart, and that's how the cloth was measured. And then sometimes brass tacks were used to spell out a person's name on their coffin. Let's hope it wasn't that last one. But we understand getting down to brass tacks means getting down to what the central meaning really is. In the first 2 chapters of John's letter that we call 1 John, he's addressed all kinds of very important theological concepts. Holiness, righteousness, salvation, atonement. Very important, very eternal. But what do they have to do with our everyday life? Well, John's answer is given in a statement that he heard Jesus make that apparently stuck in his mind. In fact, he recorded it in his gospel in the 13th chapter. Here's what Jesus said. "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." Jesus' words were challenging enough when John heard them the first time. When there were 12 disciples, it was difficult enough for them to get along. But now, as the church was growing and multiplying, how were they all supposed to love each other? When there were so many different cultures, so many different people, so many different opinions, how would that ever work out? But the command was still valid, and John writes about it in 1 John chapter 2. "Dear friends, I'm not writing you a new command, but an old one, which you have had since the beginning. This old command is the message you have heard. Yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him and you, because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining." And what is that command? Well, he writes about it in the very next verse. Here's the command. "Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates his brother is still in the darkness. Whoever loves his brother lives in the light, and there is nothing in him to make him stumble. But whoever hates his brother is in the darkness and walks around in the darkness. He does not know where he is going because the darkness has blinded him." Some people wonder if theology is really all that important. They seem to think that theological ideas are just something for academics and pastors to bat around on their day off. Not John. The first and second chapter of 1 John deal with some wonderfully deep theological concepts, but all of them have a very practical outcome, one that John heard in the teachings of Jesus. We're supposed to love each other. That's an outgrowth of our theology, of what we believe. It's an outgrowth of knowing that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died on the cross for our sins, that he rose again, that he's defeated death, that he's coming soon. All of those wonderful theological concepts have an impact on who we are and how we live. John writes that anyone who says they love Christ but treats their fellow believer badly, they're like a person walking around a house in the middle of the night with the lights off. Sooner or later, they're going to run into something. So, how are we hurt when we treat others badly? John doesn't mention the obvious hurt that we cause to another person when we treat them in an inappropriate way. But what he focuses on in this passage is how that hurts us. We're like that person walking through the living room in the middle of the night, no lights on, that runs right into the edge of the coffee table. How do you avoid that? Well, you turn on the light. We don't usually think about the ways that we act affect other people. We yell at the customer service representative because the airline lost our luggage, not thinking that that customer service representative didn't have anything to do with our luggage. And they're the only person who actually can help us find our luggage. The fact of the matter is, when we treat other people inappropriately, we're not only hurting them, we're hurting ourselves. So the Bible calls us to turn on the light. The world says the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But Jesus says, do to others as you would have them do to you. The world says, take out your enemy before they take you out. Jesus says, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. Treat others nicely who don't treat us well. Pray for our enemies that they can get saved and we'll spend eternity with them. Does Jesus realize what he's asking? Well, more than you might think. Jesus died for a world who hated him. He prayed for the very people who crucified him. He wants to spend eternity with the very people who nailed him to the cross. Want to find out how much you love Jesus? Just watch how you treat other people. If you don't like what you see, turn on the light. John's pretty straightforward here. He tells his readers, I'm not telling you anything new. Treat each other the way you want Jesus to treat you. That's a high standard, but it only makes sense. We can usually find a way to love the people that we care about. But what about those people who rub us the wrong way? What about those people who treat us unkindly? What about the people who hurt us? Oswald Chambers, in his classic devotional guide, My Utmost for His Highest, writes this: beware of living according to your natural affections in your spiritual life. Everyone has natural affections. Some people we like and others we don't like. Yet we must never let those likes and dislikes rule our Christian life. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, even those toward whom we have no affection. We often make the mistake of living our life dictated by our emotions. If we're having a good day, we treat other people well. If our day's not going so great, don't cross us. That misses the goal. Chambers continues, the secret of a Christian's life is that the supernatural becomes natural in him as a result of the grace of God. And the experience of this becomes evident in the practical, everyday details of life, not in times of intimate fellowship with God. And when we come in contact with things that create confusion and a flurry of activity, we find to our own amazement that we have the power to stay wonderfully poised even in the center of it all. God in the everyday. In those times when we're searching for a parking spot. In those times when we're standing in line at Walmart. In those days when we're thinking, who does that guy think he is? What if Jesus permeated those times of our life too? For starters, 1 John 2 tells us, we will love each other the way Jesus does. We will treat each other the way we want Jesus to treat us. We will walk in the light.